I'm Bonnie. I'm sitting in my new home, a place filled with warmth and the promise of a new beginning. But it wasn't always like this. Just a few months ago, I was in a situation that felt like a never-ending nightmare. It all came to a head one Sunday at a family lunch. I was invited to my son Ethan's house. The table was set for 9, and the house smelled of a delicious meal cooking in the slow cooker. Ethan's in-laws, his wife Olivia's sister Mia, and the kids were all there. It was supposed to be an olive branch, a chance to normalize things. Olivia started the conversation. We are worried about Bonnie. She's made some significant financial decisions without consulting us, especially Ethan, her son. We've tried to understand, but she's been unforthcoming. We think she might have come into a sum of money and is being guided by new people in harmful ways. I looked around the table at all the concerned faces. Then, I opened my leather folder. I appreciate the concern, I said calmly. In February, I won the state lottery. After taxes, I received approximately $52 million. I didn't tell anyone here because I wanted to understand my situation clearly before making decisions. I hired an estate attorney and a financial advisor and bought a home. All of this was done legally and thoughtfully. The table fell silent. Olivia's face went still. I continued, 2 weeks before I claimed the prize, I overheard a conversation where I was called a financial burden. And my personal documents were tampered with. All the recent shows of warmth in this household coincided with the moment you realized I'd hired an attorney and was leaving. I closed the folder. I've made no financial decisions that harm anyone here. My estate is properly managed, and Ethan is provided for in my will according to my wishes. For the first time in 2 years, I'm living in my own home. Looking back, it all started when my husband Arthur passed away. We had been married for 45 years, and I was lost without him. Ethan came to me in our old house in San Diego and said, "Mom, you can't stay here alone. Come live with us." I looked at the walls I'd painted, the garden Arthur and I had planted, and I agreed. Ethan's house was in Los Angeles, a large 5-bedroom house in a fancy suburb. His wife Olivia was a high-powered real estate agent. She had decorated the house in a modern style, with expensive furniture and art on the walls. I was given a small guest room at the end of the hall. I was told not to change anything. In the beginning, I told myself it was just an adjustment. Olivia was always busy with work, and Ethan worked long hours at his software company. Their 2 children, 14-year-old Jake and 11-year-old Lily, barely noticed me unless they needed something. I cooked, cleaned, helped with homework, and did the laundry. But I felt invisible. There was the time Olivia had her business associates over and introduced me as Ethan's mother who was just staying for a while. It was as if I was an unwanted guest. And one Sunday, Ethan and Olivia took the kids to brunch without telling me. I found out when I came downstairs and saw a note on the counter. One day in October, I overheard Olivia talking to Ethan in their bedroom. She eats our food, uses our utilities, and what does she contribute? I stood in the hallway for a long time, then quietly went back to my room. I started to question myself. Was I too much? Did I take up too much space? I thought about Arthur every night. I remembered how he used to make me tea in the morning because he knew I didn't like to talk early. I thought about the life I had given up to be here. Then, one Thursday afternoon in February, on my way back from the doctor, I stopped at a gas station on Route 10. There was a lottery machine near the register. I bought a ticket, something I'd done maybe a dozen times in my life with no real expectation. I put it in my coat pocket and forgot about it. 4 days later, on a Monday morning, I was sitting at the kitchen table with my reading glasses and a cup of coffee. I checked the lottery numbers. I checked them twice, then 3 times. I had won $89 million. I sat very still, looking out at the backyard pool that was covered for winter. I didn't make a sound. I folded the ticket and put it in my Bible, between the pages of Psalms. I didn't tell anyone. In March, at a normal Tuesday dinner, I was passing the rolls when Ethan said, "Mom, when are you actually planning to move out? What's the plan?" The table went quiet. I looked at my son. His hair was starting to turn gray at the temples, just like Arthur's had. I set down the basket of rolls, folded my napkin, and stood up. "Excuse me," I said, and I walked out of the room and into the backyard. It was cold outside, and the pool tarp was filled with water from the winter rain. I sat in a patio chair and looked up at the sky. I let myself feel all the pain and frustration of the past 2 years. I thought about where I would go. My old house in San Diego had been sold 8 months after I moved to Los Angeles. Ethan had suggested it, saying it was costing me money to keep it empty. Sitting there in the cold, I started to do the math in my head. After federal taxes, I would receive about $52 million. The number seemed unreal, like a dream. But I knew it was real. I sat outside for over an hour. When I went back inside, the kitchen was clean, and everyone was in their rooms. There was no knock on my door, no apology. Just silence. That night, I lay awake until 2 o'clock in the morning. I was afraid of being alone, of making mistakes with this large sum of money, and of going against my son. But then I thought about something Arthur used to say. He grew up poor, the son of a factory worker in Ohio, and he had seen his parents being taken advantage of because they were afraid to ask for what they deserved. "Bonnie," he used to say, "fear is useful for about 5 minutes. After that, it's just an excuse." I reached for my notepad and wrote down a plan. Step 1, don't tell anyone in this household about the lottery. Step 2, claim the prize privately through a financial advisor and an attorney. Step 3, establish financial independence without Ethan's knowledge. Step 4, find my own home. The next morning, I woke up at 6 o'clock. I showered, put on my nice blazer, and came downstairs. I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table. I searched for estate attorneys in Los Angeles who specialized in financial privacy. By the time Olivia came downstairs at 7:30, I had 3 appointments booked under my maiden name, Thompson. I met with an attorney named Stella Reed. She was a sharp-witted woman in her late 50s who ran a small law firm in Beverly Hills. She listened to my story without interrupting. "First, have you signed anything or told anyone at the Lottery Commission your name?" she asked. "No," I replied. "Good," she said. "We'll set up a revocable living trust before you claim the prize. Your name won't be in the public record. And we'll also talk to a financial advisor." Over the next few weeks, I worked with a financial advisor named David Chen. We discussed investment strategies, tax implications, and charitable giving. The trust was established under the name Arthur Properties LLC, in honor of my husband. The lottery was claimed quietly, and the funds were transferred to a private account. I tried to keep my routine at home the same, but Olivia noticed something was different. One Thursday evening, I heard her tell Ethan she's been going out more. I saw a folder on the kitchen table that looked like legal documents. The next morning, Ethan asked me, "Mom, is everything okay? Olivia mentioned you've had some appointments." "Nothing medical, I hope." I told him I was fine, just taking care of some administrative things. But I also noticed that my locked folder in my room had been moved. I realized they were trying to find out what I was up to. I drove to a FedEx office and made certified copies of all the documents, then sent them to Stella's office for safekeeping. I had been in touch with a real estate agent named Sarah, who worked in an area far from Olivia's business territory. One house in particular caught my eye. It had 4 bedrooms, a sunroom facing east, a big yard for a garden, and a quiet street. It felt like a place that was waiting for me. I made an offer on the house on a Wednesday morning, paying the full asking price in cash through the trust. Sarah called me later and said, "Bonnie, they accepted. We're in escrow. It's a 30-day close. Congratulations." Olivia found out about the house through a neighbor. She came to my room one Saturday morning without knocking. "You bought a house," she said. I told her I'd been looking for a place. She asked where I got the money. I said I had savings. She didn't believe me. "Ethan and I discussed your finances. You didn't have enough to buy a house in this market," she said. I looked at her and said, "Things change. Is there a reason you feel entitled to know my personal finances?" She got angry and said, "We've supported you for 2 years. We took you in when you had nowhere to go. We deserve some transparency." I replied calmly, "You have been very generous, and I am grateful. But I'll be out of your home within the month." She then started talking about estate considerations and tax implications, saying that Ethan was my son and had a right to know. I told her I had thought about everything carefully. That evening, Ethan came to my room. He said Olivia was upset. He asked if there was something going on financially. He also apologized for what he'd said at dinner. I told him I was going to be fine and that I didn't need him to worry about me. 3 days later, I drove to the new house and sat in my car outside for 20 minutes. I thought about Arthur and how much he would have loved this place. I drove home and slept better than I had in 2 years. The atmosphere at Ethan's house changed after that. Olivia started making breakfast for me, and Ethan came home for dinner more often. They tried to be nice, but I knew they were just trying to find out about the money. I was polite but didn't tell them anything. I called my old friend Grace. We had been friends since we were in high school. I told her everything. She said, "Bonnie, what you're doing is right. You gave them 2 years, and they treated you like a burden." She offered to come to Los Angeles for the move-in weekend, and I was so grateful. A few days before the move, Ethan and Olivia came to my room together. They said they were sorry for how they had treated me. They suggested that if I needed more space, they could convert the study, or if I wanted my own place, they could help me look. They said they were worried about me going through all of this alone. I looked at them and said, "I appreciate what you're saying, but I've made my decisions. I've watched and listened, and I've drawn my own conclusions. I have a competent attorney, a financial advisor I trust, and a best friend coming to help me move. I have a house of my own, and the closing is in 2 days." Olivia said, "You're making a mistake." Ethan said, "Mom, if you're not careful, someone will take advantage of you. We're the ones who should be protecting you." I stood up and said, "I'm not a woman who needs protecting. I'm a woman who needed to be treated with dignity." They left, and I sat back down. I was nervous but also determined. I knew I was doing the right thing. We moved into the new house on a Saturday. Grace was there to help. The house smelled of old wood and a faint floral scent. The previous owners had kept lavender in the rooms. As I sat on the porch swing with Grace in the afternoon, I exhaled completely for the first time in 2 years. I sent Ethan a text that morning, "I've moved out. The room is clean. Thank you for the time I was there. I'll be in touch." He replied a few hours later with, "Are you okay?" I answered, "Yes, very much so." After that, Ethan called me to invite me to a family lunch. I knew it was an attempt to get more information, but I decided to go. That's when I revealed the truth about the lottery at the lunch. In the following weeks, Stella called me to say that Olivia and Ethan had inquired about challenging my financial decisions, but there was no basis for a challenge. I decided how to distribute my estate. I would leave Ethan 20% of the estate, my daughter in Seattle, Emily, would receive 40%, and the remaining 40% would go to a charity that supported education, in honor of Arthur. Over time, Ethan and I started to rebuild our relationship. We met for coffee a few times, and our conversations were more open. Olivia and I still have a strained relationship, but I'm okay with that. My life has changed completely. I've made new friends in the neighborhood. I've started a garden, and the kids, Jake and Lily, come to visit on Saturdays. I've learned that dignity is something you hold on to, and it's never too late to take control of your life.